So if you could quickly introduce yourselves, and then after you've introduced yourself, give your perspective on the broad question at hand, which I only showed you a little bit earlier, but it's up here if you want to look at it. And then we'll kick off with some questions. So why don't we just go from my left?
So I'm David Rasmussen. I'm a domain architect for AdTech at Nant Group. Previously, it's all the broadcast and AVOD and SVOD that was previously MTG. So what I see as the next step is we need to reverse this trend away from good towards easy and make sure that we start doing the good things even if they're hard.
Thank you, Sam.
So I'm Sam Taylor. I work for Direct Line Group. Apologies for those who've already seen me this morning. So I'm here, and I'm also the chairperson for the ISBAR TV Action Group, which is the Incorporated Society of British Advertisers, of which Bobby is part of. So for me, and I'm going to talk about what we do and what advertisers do. We are in the business not of advertising anymore. We're in the business of effectively reaching audiences. And so with that in mind, my challenge is that how do we get better at effectively reaching audiences? And by effectively, I mean not under-reaching, because that's ineffective, and not reaching but with excess frequency, because that's also ineffective. And then in the world we're staring into now with the sort of movements of TV, how do we do that? And how do we get to that place? And how do we make that not an advertiser problem? How do we make the pipes and the methodology become an agency and media owner and tech problem?
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Paul Good from Comscore. I've spent 15 years doing media measurement, first on mobile, then digital, deduplicating mobile and PC, and for the last 5 years trying to understand the deduplication between TV and digital. And apparently I'm a failure, because if anyone's been at this conference either this year or for the last 10 years, there's been this constant request for, can we have decent cross-media measurement? And it is repeated year after year. And it's actually reached a crescendo this year that the World Federation of Advertisers have actually formed a group and got a load of people together in New York to say, you're not doing a very good job. And in fact, Phil Smith from ISBAR stood up at ASI, the TV measurement conference, a couple of weeks ago, and very publicly said, as an industry, we are failing to deliver the cross-media measurement, which is understanding, was an ad seen, across different media and not silos of different players coming in with their own set of data, an independent set of measurement.
And came up with a fantastic name, Origin.
And Project Origin.
What was the origin of Origin?
Origin of Origin, that's the question I asked. No answer.
So hopefully on this panel, I'm not sure we'll necessarily answer, but at least we might get to...
Oh, we will.
Oh, okay. Expectations are set, but sort of
5 hours.
why I'm a failure, and obviously I could blame my parents, but
it's going to take longer than this panel to
it'll get there. But I think it's more systematic, and I think that's probably what we should explore, of what are some of the changes of why the results that we're getting and the fragmented data that is being produced is the logical consequence of the structure that we have constructed.
You had a minute.
Thank you.
So I'm going to take time off your but thank you for revealing that you're a failure.
Thank you.
Or maybe reiterating.
So my name is Robert. I'm from TV Beat. I would like to agree with David what he said before, that we should do good things and not only easy things. But I would like to add to that we should do good things which are sometimes hard, but on the end, they need to be very easy and simple for the buyer, right? So I think it's very important that, because we see that simplicity and easiness of buy drives the transactions, and I think we need to really do that. And to achieve that is actually very hard, because there is a lot of legacy systems which are complementing with the new one, and you need to somehow put this together.
Lovely, thank you. So I want to dig under the surface a little bit if I can. And I agree, having been to some of these things, that it gets a bit frustrating. Because you're like, we should totally do this. Everyone's like, yes. And we've heard some things that could be reasons why. So one of them is plumbing. One of them is governance. There's also politics and there's also money, which are obviously intertwined. So and I'm going to start with Paul, just because I suspect he may have the most emotional reaction to this. If you were to pinpoint the single biggest issue why the thing that we all want hasn't happened, what would it be?
Governance, closely related to money. And the reason I say governance is America is its own case, so we can leave America to one side for now. But in the social states of Europe, where we often have JIC organisations, joint industry committees, by their nature they are fragmented by media, and therefore they are committees, and they act in the interests of the media owners who fund them, and they're predominantly funded by the by the sell side. And the challenges that are being faced that the WFA and ISBA are asking are inherently cross-media solutions that are not, and there's two problems. One is that if you're going to do cross-media measurement, then there are going to be winners and losers as you start joining the data together, and why should people fund something that they may not benefit from? And the other thing is that the exam question of cross-media ad measurement is a fundamentally different question than what's being asked today. It is not a change of degree, it's a change of factor of complexity of what's being asked. We have addressable advertising that is completely shattering the relationship between content and ads. And you're asking to deduplicate this fragmentation, and the request from the WFA is always on cross-media measurement done independently when you've got these different silos. That requires data assets at a scale that JICs and organizations have not been comfortable with, and they have not invested in. So it's not just a question of, hey, let's take all these different JICs and join them up together. We're talking about a different order of magnitude. So then the question is, okay, this may be what the industry requires, and this isn't a technical challenge. It's difficult, but it's perfectly doable if people want to fund it. And we've got lots of examples of where we're doing bits of this.
So Sam, are you being unreasonable?
I don't think I am, no. I think, there's plenty of evidence around that, there is momentum, whether it be momentum within JIC, within Barb, there's momentum within, and we've already seen the CFlight example. The broadcasters are all doing stuff, there's tech companies doing stuff. My fear is there is lots of money being spent, but it's being spent on lots of things, solving the same problem. But what if that money was all spent on collectively on solving the single problem? I don't think there's a lack of money. It doesn't feel like there's a lack of money. I think the end goal for me is that if we could prove the value of universal measurement across media, and particularly within cross TV, because let's get TV fixed first and then worry about everything else, it's been my view, given certainly from our point of view, because we spend a lot of money on TV. The impact on the effectiveness of that would improve. So we are very, very focused on the way we measure ROI. And I know that if we were to measure that and if we were to manage our effectiveness of our reach better by universally measuring everything, then the ROI would improve and we'd put more money in. So more money would exist as a result. And all advertisers will say the same thing. More money will be pumped into the advertising market if we could prove the effectiveness of that. So I don't think there's a shortage of money. I think there's more money to come if it's fixed. And I think that's a general view from most advertisers.
I think Paul wants to have a fight. But I will let you say one thing, and I want to get to other people.
No,
too.
I would just say, as an experience of, one in terms of the scope of cross-media projects, they are predominantly, as you were saying, extended TV. Mm-hmm. So the bigger request is doing cross-media measurement, so deduplicating everything, and pretty much the JIC-based cross-media projects are just adding broadcast of VOD. And the budgets for those are predominantly coming from the existing budget that already existed, and they are cutting, and you know this in Canada and other markets, which is the JICs are being told, do more with the same money. Now, there's other projects going on. Google, Facebook are funding all kinds of siloed, you can buy my media and do integrated stuff, and sorry Jeff, but what Jeff's trying to solve is his slice of deduplicating his fragmented pieces. But from a holistic view of joining that together, there is, and I fully applaud the WFA and the ISBA initiative. It is fantastic. It's a question of, there is a challenge of how that actually gets funded. So I am await.
I want to circle back to this idea because I think it's a key one. But David, you're someone who is paying for everything in some way, shape, or form, and
Well, thanks to Sam's money.
so and also is experiencing this firsthand. So if you were to, I'd like to get your take on this, but also if we go back to that question of what is holding this back, in your opinion, what's your experience?
As I said, there's a fragmentation in agendas. So we have people who want to understand just simple things like what's my broadcast reach? You say you want to reach the audience, but how do we define the audience? At what scale do we define it? We're working within our ecosystem. So as a broadcaster, we can, like you said, Paul, the technology is there. We can tell you exactly who saw the ad, if they saw it on broadcast, if they saw it on AVOD, if they saw it on one of our partners. The technology is there, but it's not fully deployed because that would cost a lot. And even if we deployed it at scale, there's a lot of areas that we can't hit. And then someone is going to say, this is only half done. But we need to start doing one half so that we can do the next half.
Progress over perfection.
I think so.
Robert, I want you bring you in here. So you strike me as someone who sees systems and thinks this system is broken, I should make a better one. So, and you obviously sort of do a bit of steering from behind in that you're working with the broadcasters to try and get them to a place where they can do what the broadcaster needs to do. But I want to take your systems brain and apply it to like this bigger problem. So if you could do anything to fix this problem, and you had any governance structure you liked, I've sprung this question on you, didn't send it to you at all. But you seem extremely bright. So how would you do it?
Thank you.
How would you do it? Take your system thinking and go, how would you actually fix this? What needs to get done?
So I think that one big challenge here is that reluctancy to change. You know, I think
On whose part?
on the broadcaster side or the TV media side, right? So I think you always have winners and losers, and I think we have some winners who are actually in this change of fragmentation are becoming a clear winners. I think it's visible. I don't want to say names, but I think it's visible on every market who is the winner, right? And I know it sounds maybe a bit controversial, but I think they should drive the agendas more, not in their favor, but in the favor of the industry, right? It means that, for example, you know, the winners of the past are maybe not the winners of the future. And, you know, these are usually the guys who has the biggest shares in their old linear traditional TV. They are the guys who are now just protecting their pie. And, you know, if they will just protect their pie, maybe one day there will be no pie anymore. They need to actually think who are the guys who are actually maybe making small pies, but these pies are growing if I'm using this kind of
I think we're all fairly
analogy,
hungry, so
right?
if you could switch the metaphor.
So I don't want to say the name. So I think, you know, I think that's the biggest problem, you know, reluctance to change. And we see some guys then investing on their own in something which 20 years ago was currency job, right? So why these guys are doing this on their own? I think we should all ask that. It's because they want to have competitive advantage? Maybe a bit. Do they want to do that? Are they doing that because they see the change, but they see that the industry is too slow, right? So I think these are the guys which the rest of the industry should follow or try to join them, right? It's important to say that here we are not talking about competing between each other anymore. Yes, of course, for some maybe one campaign deal, right? But you're competing against players from the outside. The whole conference, I'm looking the big numbers from the companies like, you know, Facebook, Amazon, now Disney. Everyone is putting huge numbers inside. Great, but you know, let's focus on the winners who are actually already doing the change. Join them, encourage them, and just run together. So that's how I would approach that. And I don't think the jigs will run the change. I don't think even it's a budget problem there. I think it's understanding problem. You know, you talk with currency guys and they say, oh, we will put the data in Excel. What do you mean you will put the data in Excel? It's not a panel anymore of 5,000 or 500, right? You need a huge system who can manage billions of events. It's a very different concept, and I don't think they get it. I don't believe they will get it. So our view is that you need to join the winners, which are very clear actually already in every market. Let's encourage them, join them, and drive together.
So Sam, you're in a position to pick winners, I would think, in that you're able to say, well, look, I'll reward behavior that I want to see. So is that something that you would actively consider as part of how you invest? Is you want to go, look, in the same way that I encourage my children by bribing them when they do good things, which is
Yeah. Well,
Do we-
I think the fact that we are all now, as advertisers, focused on effectiveness, we're already rewarding that by investing in what works. And I think what we need to do is to be able to continue to do that, and that is essentially the reward. I think the important point there is the high tide floats all boats is the key thing. And I think for the UK market, the amount of conversations I have with Facebooks, the Googles around, well, we'll fix this for you. We'll fix it for you. If you take that much money out of TV and stick it over here, we'll show you it works. But that's not what we want, because we are advocates of TV. I'm actually defending TV in the boardroom when actually there's a whole lot of broadcast agencies that could do that with me, because we've proven the value of TV in our kind of our media mix. But that's the key thing for me is I think we need the broadcasters need to. I mean, there is momentum. They're doing stuff. Everyone's working on solutions. It's slower than I'd like it to be, but there is momentum. But I think we've only reached a point now. I think for 2020 where we're hitting, I think, a really, really important year where we're tipping into larger volumes of viewership through broadcast VOD, larger volumes through OTT, and I think we're just in that tipping point. It's not become urgent, and I think now it's just crept up and it's become urgent, and now we just need to get on with it and fix it.
So, so when you're saying you're picking winners, that's typically at the medium level, though, yeah.
Mhm.
So you're like, I will
Yeah.
pick this medium over something else,
Yeah.
which seems to be the heart of the problem. Is that we've got the medium can only move at the speed of the slowest of the representative medium.
So I want to add something to that. So when I was talking about the winners, right, I'm talking about the winners in the TV industry,
Yeah.
right? That's very important to highlight here. And again, so I'm here from Europe, right? We like to be social and equal and everything, which is great, right? But
Yeah, that happens in Canada too. I
yeah,
think.
great.
You know?
But interestingly enough, I moved several years ago to US, and what I learned there is that they like to pick winners and support them, right? So what you said here now, it's something which I think TV industry is doing wrong. Let's move so fast how the slowest can move. I think the slowest will die. That's the evolution, right? That's how it is. Slowest die, the fastest win. And I think that's how it should be in TV. Maybe I can be very controversial here, and I'm like what I'm saying, but that's how it should be. And for example, it's very clear. Like, for example, if Sky 6-7 years ago invested in AdSmart, took that risk, driving that force here in UK, seeing now Liberty Global Virgin joined with AdSmart, Channel 4 now, right? I mean, it seems it works, right? It should go in that direction in other markets as well. And of course, some people will say now, why Sky is doing that now? They did this 7 years ago when everyone was just looking how my linear business is still okay. And I think we should reward that. Industry should reward that. Advertisers should reward that, and actually, support that development also in other markets. And we see
What
how this
advertisers, I
happen.
think, what advertisers should do is partner with and be able and willing to help solve the problem when they need to. So, from a direct line group point of view, we will offer money in terms of the media spend that we have to go, let's help you test that. Here's some money to help test that. And we've done that on a number of things on digital, TV. We work quite closely with Sky and try and help solve the problem, because we do have money to spend, and we have 40 million quid worth of TV spend. So within that, I'm going, well, how can I help you help us by measuring how we spend that and delivering it? So I think we can do more of that. I think advertisers need to lean into that. But I think the danger is we do need the broadcasters to step up and take action. And so there's only so much we can do. And I think there are examples of broadcasters doing that across the globe.
Yes.
So David, as someone who's representing a broadcaster, and this is something we talk about a lot in our country, is how do you balance some of the excellent stuff that a company can do because they're motivated and incentivized to do it for that company, with the fact that advertisers, and correct me if I'm wrong, typically don't care about the company, they care about the medium if they care about anything. So an advertiser cares about possibly TV, you kind of care about TV secondarily, care about your company first, which means you'll do things for your company that don't necessarily rise the tide for everyone. So how do you make those decisions? How do you choose when to go ahead of your competitors and to do things that are good for you? And how do you go, actually, no, we need to bring everyone up at the same time? It's just a really easy question. For
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
you just
I think if we stay just within the broadcaster ecosystem, it's difficult to talk about competitors when we're all so closely together. We already have the same currencies, we already have the same methods. Advertisers don't care about the difference. They just care about the reach, and they care about just getting out to the audience. And so they're not really competitors. But to your point, I mean, we will leave the slowest one behind if we have to. We're already doing that. I mean, you see JECs where different players interact more than others. And that's going to be their problem. We're not going to be held back because one of our peers can't keep up. At some point we're going to do that. But we're also fighting against something at a much larger scale. And that's why I say we need to do the first half. But we're probably never going to join everyone. So we need advertisers who will back what's good for their brands as well. We need to have advertisers like you then who will say we're gonna stake this experiment just to see how it works because you believe in it and we have proven that the concept is going to work. So there's, I don't know if that answers the question, but it's competition doesn't really matter so much, and we're going to do what's best for our company because we think that whatever we do is going to be best for the advertisers, and then hopefully we will lead the charge.
So I want to ask you a question for a while, but I'm not going to ask you this one either. Just raise your hopes and dash them. Also what I do with my children. So, Sam, we talk a lot about what the broadcasters should be doing, and it reminds me a little bit of when agencies would say, you know what, you should have a unified sales team. And so broadcasters did this organisation. We are one, whatever. And then you go to the agency and they haven't done that. They've each got their own separate heads. So you go, what? So an advertiser will say, here's what you should be doing. Where are your responsibilities in this? And what should you be doing that you haven't done yet to help this happen? And not just money and picking winners.
I think, advertisers getting closer to broadcasters is important. I think that, and all of the broadcasters now are restructuring around that focus on client service teams, because it's important to understand the challenges on advertiser basis, but also because agencies and advertisers don't stay with agencies forever, and it's important to have a relationship with the client. So when they move agency, you maintain that relationship with the client, and that's really important. I think that's become more recognised now. But I think it's responsibility of the advertisers to be really clear on what it is they're trying to achieve. So we're really clear with our business partners on why we're reaching audience, how we're trying to get there, what the problems are, what success looks like. And being really single-minded on that, and then allowing a partnership to help solve the problem. And I see, and one of the things that I think is really frustrating is the fact that we do talk to different types of TV. So does broadcast help build value on top of linear? Does addressable help? When actually all I want is an audience. I just don't want. I want to buy. I don't look at my media plan and go, right, have I got the right amount of ITV, the right amount of Channel 4, the right amount of Sky? I'm looking at my TV plan and I'm going, that I believe that mix will deliver against my audience objectives. So why should I care then? Well, what if I add broadcast? Well, that's just a different bit of plumbing. It's just a different way of buying. It's a different methodology. And so what we need to talk about is how do we work in partnership to solve the problem, which is most effectively reaching audience, either to drive brand fame on one end or to drive short-term acquisition or sales on the other.
Paul,
can I
please do.
Answer that. But there's, we want to make sure that we have all the plumbing you need to get, to provide our share of what you need. But as to the bigger question about what advertisers can do to drive this is also to smart up a bit. We need more advertisers who understand what they're buying and what they're getting, advertisers who don't go to their media agency and say, what's the CPM you're getting? We need advertisers who will question this. And like I say, the same way that we need to build a relationship with the advertiser so that when they switch agency, they stay with us, advertisers need to do the same thing. They need to understand at some scale every piece of media that their agency is investing in and not just rely on what they get out of an Excel sheet in the end.
I think it's an education job to do amongst advertisers or personnel within advertisers as well, and that's something we do focus heavily on Inspire is within the groups we have, and certainly within the TV group, is making it really clear that we help them navigate through the questions they have around TV. Because what we're finding now, and certainly within our team at Direct Line, is that lot of the people that are involved in media are digital people, and they're not experienced with buying planning TV. So you could sit in a sort of marketing meeting and ask the team, how do you calculate a TVR? They wouldn't have a clue. And it doesn't make sense anymore because you're buying zero rated ratings, and so the currency doesn't really, it's hard to explain in that environment. So I think there is an education job to do, and I think that's one of the things we are going to be focusing on with ISBA, to say how do we make sure that all of the UK TV advertisers understand the opportunities that are out there and how they can help.
I'm going to ask Paul 2 questions because he's had any, and I want you to think of questions. You. Yes. Don't avoid my glances. Paul, 2 questions. One is Sam normal. So the fact that he's here,
Don't answer that, Jamie.
the fact that he's here suggests he isn't, because he's at a conference about a particular media. And not only that, but he gets paid £10,000, £15,000 per panel to be here, which is a lot less than I'm receiving, so good for you for doing that. So, in other words, are most advertisers less caring and less educated, and obviously less handsome than Sam? And the second question is, I suspect you have some strong ideas about winners versus losers, governance, should this be common or whatever. So if you could do this Sam normal question, and then what would you do?
I mean, of course, we're all normal, but we're here. We're a representative bunch of people who all think in the same way. No, I mean, the more important, I think, question is to Robert's point, that the scale of the data that's now available. I mean, Sky innovated because they could, because they had set-top boxes and return path data. Not part of the currency, but it enabled them to start down a path to do dynamic ad insertion. The growth of connected TV is getting us the feedback loop that TV, it's no longer broadcast. We're now getting the feedback. So to meet the challenge of the scale, to handle this deduplication between TV and digital, we need to leverage this. And precisely what ComScore does in the US, we get return path data from 25 million households. On set-top box data, we get VOD from about 90 million households. And that is the scale that you can bring in. But it then means that your digital assets can't be based on a 20,000, 50,000 panel. You've got to be able to scale to a respondent level data set on both sides.
So who should pay for that, Paul?
We pay lots of money to you pay money each month to the cable companies to get that return path data.
So for that product you're creating now, who should pay for that?
Well, obviously, we'd all like everyone to be socialist like the Canadians, because, the CRTC has come in Canada and mandated that everyone's got to hand over the return path data in order to go to Numeris. Now, the Swiss are likewise sharing data. But I mean, leaving aside that money.
It's obviously the nice countries that
it's lovely countries. But it's more the fact that we have this data, we have a demand from advertisers that say, I don't want to see the world in silos, whether it is a media silo or a Google and a Facebook silo. Please let me deduplicate this. I need a planning tool. I need to get campaign reporting, and really I want in-flight reach frequency optimization, which is a massive ask. We have to leverage this data. We have been doing, and I think the funding model is a challenge for the JICs to move to that, and I think we are going to see a step change of behaviour. And I think the other thing just worth saying is, JICs are not about the truth. They're a truce. It is an agreement between players that there's a common set of metrics that we're going to do. And there's the last presentation from John from Mindshare was fantastic, because we're moving, the idea that there's this eternal truth that we're touching and somehow this beautifully crafted panel is the source of all knowledge. We are moving into a world of greater modeling on top of mass scale census data, and we just need to be transparent about the assumptions and the models that we're going to do for the deduplication. And sadly, there are about 10 people in the world who either are interested enough or do enough maths that they can understand it. And that's the world we're moving to.
Is anyone here on the panel?
I'm certainly not.
Okay.
But we have the opportunity. The data assets are there. That's what's driving the innovation. That's why this conference exists. The measurement industry hasn't caught up to leverage those. And I think we will see various initiatives that are sort of outside the governance structure because we can go and deliver stuff. And if that takes value, we'll see where it goes.
Okay, I want you lot thinking about next steps. And what questions do we have? I can't see anything. Jamie West.
That's me. I guess I want to challenge you slightly. So firstly, yesterday there was a great example talked about from our Australian colleagues about cross-platform measurement reporting, deduplicated reach and frequency. And we've already talked about the progress that's being made in the UK. So I'll challenge you because I think you're running the risk of doing what the industry did 5, 6, 7 years ago in saying, it's all shit, we're all doomed. We're making magnificent progress, and I think we should celebrate that and move forward and get behind it, to Robert's point. My actual question, sort of then to build on that, is I don't think it's about the technology. I don't think it's particularly about the money. You know, we've committed millions in the UK to build out CFlight with ITV and Channel 4. Spent millions in Australia to do the same. So it's not about the money. I don't think it's about the technology. For me, cross-media measurement is about standards. And the issue is whether you can get other media, all media, to agree to a common set of standards and principles. Because I don't think 1 second equals 30 seconds. I don't think 1 second of a quarter of a view in, you know, a quarter of a page equals 30 seconds full screen. So if we're going to have, and the WFA and ISBA are going to ask these things, they're going to have to set the benchmarks that recognise value and success. So my question is, do you ever think that's going to happen?
I'm not answering that.
Sam Taylor is.
I would just say that I think that, you know, it's a really difficult task that we can't do it on TV. So if we can't do it on TV, how are we going to step forward and join that conversation with other media types, because we can't even solve it on our own backyard.
But I mean, a standard would be great. We've had standards, and then new players entered, and they challenged the standard, and they provided something new, and it's going to happen again. If we manage to get a standard across everyone in 2020, in 2021 we're going to have someone else come in and sell a new way of advertising on their own scale with their own pricing, and advertisers are going to buy it, and they're going to break that standard that we had, and it's going to fall apart, and we need to have the same discussion again in 2022. So setting a standard is, I think, like you said, we need to find a truth more than the truth.
I mean, I'd say the standard issue is fundamental, and one of the key WFA tracks is there's a plumbing group, there's a governance group, and the other one is standards, because how do we have these metrics? Coming back to the point that you made about Dovetail and the Australian progress, there is no doubt that those assets and developments are absolutely necessary and fundamental to the end state, but in themselves they are not sufficient. You cannot measure cross-media campaign measurement deduplicated between TV and digital off a panel. It just isn't big enough. And you have to be leveraging the scale that you get from return path data and synthetic constructs on the digital side to be able to deduplicate that. And you must have the panels that have been built for Dovetail and in Australia to inform the models that are going to get built. And they are necessary, but in themselves they're not sufficient. And the next step that as a measurement industry we need to take, and part of the work, the WFA are going to produce their summary by the 10th of January. And one of the things that we're working on is a summary to say, here is all the JIC initiatives of cross-media measurement around the world, and this is where they sit, and the ambition that's being asked for is up here. And in terms of either the scope, is it total video, is it total view, or is it just extended TV? And are the data assets being employed? Are they panel-centric with some census tagging of streaming, or are they bringing in household-level TV respondent data at scale? And then, that's where we see this disconnect, that there is something being requested, and I don't see the clear path in the JIC route to join all of this stuff up together, and that's my concern.
Are there any other questions? Oh, no.
Jeff has
Richard
an opinion.
Marks. I'll ask Richard. Richard, do you want to go? Sorry, Richard. I would shout.
You mentioned the ASI conference, which full disclosure I'm involved in running. It was a really good debate after Phil spoke from ISBA. Interestingly, Brian J.
So for those who didn't hear, the idea is you levy a tax on advertising that enables more money to flow into the system for things like is that a fair?
Effectively, if the supply side can't the supply side carries it through a levy on advertising.
So are you in favour of election coming up soon, I understand? Are you in favour of more taxes on advertising?
For sure, and the governance committee, actually Andy Brown from Kantar suggested that it was a model that used to run in South Africa where there was a tax put that a certain amount should go into measurement. And I think we need to look at something like that. So it's not necessarily that the advertisers need to pay more, but they're just saying, of the money I'm spending, we want this bit set aside to answer this set of problems. And however that money then flows through the ecosystem, it needs to get apportioned out.
Any thoughts, Robert?
Yeah, so my view, I believe the standards are really good, brings clarity and simplicity. I think that standards should be first agreed between the TV players before inviting anyone from outside. I think TV has some really key advantages, and I don't believe actually Google and Facebook or any of these guys will join that. I would be really surprised. Let's see. But I think, already if I'm an advertiser, actually, for example, I see in few markets, if I want to buy addressable ad or BVOD ad, actually how people are measuring this ad is actually already different. So if you're the advertiser and you buy something here in France, how they measure that impression on BVOD or addressable ad is very different. So I believe it should be actually first standard across TV media players, so that impression on addressable or BVOD really means the same everywhere in the world. They should have very high standards, like 75% or 100% completion. And this is something which Facebook, Google, they cannot achieve. It's just a different model. People who use that, they use totally differently. And there is no way they can charge on that model because their business will really go down. And I don't believe they will support that. So investing in all that, I think first let's focus on TV, make TV even stronger with the standards, and then let's make them come to us, right?
But that sounds like what someone said yesterday about building a worldwide walled garden for broadcasters.
Well, it seems to work fairly well for the other.
Why not? I mean, if Google is building it, Facebook is building it, why TV cannot build it? I mean, it has a great product, which was actually, look what is happening. What is for me very interesting, right? These guys are actually investing more and more money in TV. Can you imagine? Google, Facebook spending more and more money on TV advertising. Why? It works, right? I mean,
yes.
They recognize that it works. So I would say let's build then the walled garden for TV. Why not? With the standards, right? Yeah.
There was a question here. Yes.
Andrew Bonner from Discovery. Just related to that point, do you think it would help move the measurement conundrum forward if TV broadcasters started reporting impressions alongside the TV ratings that are complex, given that there's generations of planners that have only grown up with impressions?
Yeah. So I will
Did
give you
everyone
one.
hear that? Did you hear that question at the back? It's basically, should we move to impressions? Is that right?
Yeah, so I will share one experience. I see that some people after 10, 15 years still don't understand GRPs, right? What does this tell you? It's too complex. This world of young planners, they don't care about that, all right? So let's make simple and standardize across the TV. That would be my view on that.
But having it in parallel then, back to what I said, impressions are easy, but TRPs are good. So we need to have people to learn it. But having it side by side to say this is a simple translation, then, Yeah,
I
Jeff had
know.
his hand up
I
since
see
I
you.
said something. I don't remember what it was.
I'm going to have what's her name walking up the front in a minute. And I was suggesting she just keeps walking to right next to me. Okay. This feels like something, I've 1,000 questions I want to ask. But obviously, Jeff, you have a...
No, I was just going to say, to add to standards, I think we've lost the will to have rigor. Okay, so to pick up Sam's point, yes, you do have to explain what a TBR is, because it's a standard that is open, it's written down, it's audited, and the digital guys just say it's an impression, without caring where that impression came from, what it meant, how long it was, what system produced it, and if we want to move to that, then great. Let's just create really large numbers to make it seem really, really impressive.
This is a whole area we should talk about over alcohol.
And we're definitely not.
So impressions strike me. My sister was a teacher, a primary school teacher, and she banned the word nice And the reason was because nice seems to explain a lot, but it explains too much. And all the nuances of the other words that you would pick, when you actually pick nice, get lost. And that's kind of, I suspect your point, is that yes, we can pick something simple, but it may not be something
The
that's
value
good.
there, the value, and I go to that point. I think the value, the reason for that is it's consistent.
Yeah, it should
It's
be
the only
consistent, yes.
system that's consistent.
Although, do you want to
system,
just
and
look at
that's- and
fruit,
that's-
or do you want to realize the
But the
difference in
challenge with
apple and
that is consistency, right? Is like, as I mentioned before, in some markets, impression means, 0% viewed. And in some markets means 75, right? So what we believe, or I believe, is that 75%, 100% complete impression, maybe it won't be called impression, something else which TV can define, it's something which, digital players actually cannot compete with. Their platforms are different models, and they cannot compete to 75 to 100. And this is the advantage of the TV industry. And I know that some people are like ACT are driving that, but it's interesting to see how even that is hard to achieve, to actually agree if the standard is 75% of 100% of milestone, which is really interesting to see that this consistency is hard to achieve between different players across the markets.
We are out of time. I think, I don't want to say this in front of everyone, but I think actually together, with your technical expertise, your money, Tam, that you got from the panel, your rage, I think we could actually, and I've got a nice jacket, so I think we can actually solve this. So thank you everyone for your participation. Please give everyone a fantastic round of applause.